Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today I'm going to be making a rectangular pot. I've had a lot of questions about what clay I'm using, so I'll show you what clay it is.
The clay is a PSH clay, 540i black stoneware, and it gets fired to cone 6. So it has a bisque firing and then a final firing up to the cone 6 temperature.
I don't have a kiln, so I'm hoping to get these pots fired when Isabella fires the dragon pot that I made late last summer.
The pot I'll be making today is similar to this one, except it'll be a rectangular pot. The sides will come straight down and the feet will just be cut out. There'll be no lip on the top of the pot, so it'll be a very simple rectangular pot. And sometimes simple is difficult to make. So I'll get started and see how it turns out. Alright, I'm going to begin by cutting out a block of clay that I'll be using. So I think somewhere about here. This is too big, but I can cut it down to size then. And I'll just kind of flatten the clay out a bit with my roller, getting a rough rectangular shape. That'll do nicely. Okay, time to start shaping the pot. I'm going to start by flattening the top, so I'll bring my gauge in here and I'll take material off the top, and that'll get the top parallel with the bottom. I'll have to do this flattening operation several times as the clay hardens, because it'll deform as I'm working on it. But this will get it roughly parallel and give me a fairly flat surface on the top. Okay, that's good and flat on the top now. So next, I want to lay out my rectangular shape. It's roughly laid out now, but I need to get it kind of squared up. So for that, I will come back with the ruler and I'll just slice downwards. Like that. And this is where I need to determine the proportions of the pot. So right now it's a little long. So I will come in and take some more off the end like that. So that's getting closer. I'd say, no, that's okay, I think. I think that's a good proportion. So there's my clay roughed out now. Next, I need to get the basic taper on the pot. So I could use the ruler, and instead of coming down at 90 degrees, I could come in at an angle. So I'll try that. That didn't work very well, did it? Got a funny bend in there. Try that again. That's better. And I'll flip it around and do this side. Like that. And I'll do the ends. And then I'll do this end. So that's got some basic taper to the pot now. It's deformed a little bit, but it's not too bad. So next, I'm going to scoop out the inside. So here I go scooping out the inside, so I will leave a lip that's a little bigger than I want in the final pot. Leaving my edges proud. So the clay is very soft at the moment. It deforms easily, but it's a good time to do all this rough shaping. Removal of the inside here, cutting it to shape. If you don't have access to a kiln, you can buy this clay at pottery supply stores or online. And if you check in your local area, I'm sure there's a potter's guild or a pottery workshop club or something that will fire it for you. So you have to let your pots air dry first, removing as much moisture as you can. And then the bisque firing is a low temperature firing, and that removes any water that's left in the clay or humidity that's in it. And then it goes into the final firing, which almost liquefies the clay and unifies it and makes it very hard. So these pots, I wouldn't leave them out in the frost. They can take light frost, but if you have very wet soil in it and it freezes, the soil expands and it could crack the pot. So I'll mainly be using tropical trees in these pots, so I won't have to worry about frost. But I mean, you can, I have hardy trees in this same type of clay, and as long as you keep the soil a little on the dry side, they can take a freeze. I've got my leftover clay here, and I might as well make something with it. So I was thinking a round pot. So let me do that. I'll just roll out the top here. We'll try making 2 pots at once today. So I'll just start sculpting the sides away. And maybe we'll make a drum pot or something. And I don't want it too big. These are supposed to be miniature pots, not big pots. So I'll try and keep the size down. Now the clay does shrink. That clay shrinkage is nice when you're making miniature pots, because as it dries it shrinks even more. As it gets fired, you end up with a smaller pot than you start out with, so it looks even more miniature, which is nice. So it's a bit oblong. I need to make this a little more round looking. I think by the time I get this round, it'll be quite a small pot. I think I'll flatten out the top of it. So again, I'll come in and just skim some off the top. Like that. Now I'll come from above and try and improve my round shape. I'm just going to do this by eye. Okay, that's getting a little more round. It's not bad anyway. So that is pot number 2. And I've got to decide what style I want this pot. Right now it's quite tall. I'll put a line around for the feet. Like that. So that'll be the foot section. I think probably a little more will come off the top, but I'll do that as I'm working on it. So next I want to scoop out the inside of this pot. For this one I'll use my rounded wire tool. just come and begin removal. If I make this a drum pot, I'm thinking about how would I make the little raised rivets on it. And I guess I would just pick out little pieces of clay and push them in. Maybe make a hole first to locate it and then kind of... Yeah, I don't know how potters do it actually. I've never seen a video on it or anything. Interesting. Well, maybe I can look that up while I'm waiting for the clay to harden up. How they put the rivets on the side of these drum pots. If I make it a drum pot, I'm not sure yet. I don't know the exact style this one will be. It might be one of those pots that just is what it is, what it turns out to be. Okay, so I'm getting closer to where I want to be for roughing out the inside. Again, I don't want to go too deep until I know how thick the bottom will be. And that'll be determined by the feet. Yeah, so I think that's good for the hollowing out of this pot. Yeah, so I'll let that clay toughen up a bit. On this round pot, I have to decide, do I want 4 feet or do I want 3 feet? I'm thinking 4. It's a tough decision, but I think 4 will do. So I'll lay out my feet. I'll just make sort of a cross here, indicating the position of my 4 feet, like that. And then I will come in and start removing material between the feet. And I'm thinking this pot, maybe I won't make it a drum pot. Maybe I'll make it more of a fancy flower shape or lotus style pot with this kind of sculpted sides. Something a little fancier. I'll save the drum pot for another video. I'll definitely make a drum pot and a cascade pot. And I'll try a lot of different styles. So I'll start with the feet maybe a little big. And then I can always bring them down in size as I work away at it. I think when you buy a handmade pot, it should have features on it, or it should be different from a commercial pot. It should have added touches of the artist. It should be something that you can't buy commercially. Ideally. So, you know, fancier feet than you would get in a production pot, or a style that's maybe a little unique. You don't want it too unique or too different, but something that makes it special. Gives you a reason why you're buying a handmade pot and not a commercial production pot. That's my feeling anyway. So you can see the feet are kind of roughed in now. It's looking quite nice. So I'll let that dry for a bit and I'll start working on the rectangular one. Now, this one, its feet will just be cut out. So to do that, I will again lay out the feet and they'll come right to the corners. So I'll put a mark here and a mark here. And then I can remove the material from the inside here. Now this kind of pot should be, as I said, the simplest pot to make, but to get it nice and square and good looking may be the hard part. It's like working with chocolate. It's smooth and buttery, this clay. So I've got the feet roughed in on this pot. It's looking quite nice. I will make it a little deeper. I think I'm still too shallow with the feet. Okay, so that's got that roughed in, my feet. Let's go back to the round pot now. So the round pot, I've got to think about these feet and the shape of the pot. So I'm thinking I would want a bit of a curled lip on this pot, especially if it's going to be sculpted like a flower. So there's a couple of ways I can do this. I should mark out the lip first. Like that. That gives me a good idea of where my lip will be. And then I've got to commit to the shape of this pot if I'm going to sculpt with the round tool down, which might look quite nice. I'm going to try it. Here I go. So I'll start in between the feet and I'll come down, sculpt out. I'll do it the same here. Yeah, it's getting closer. I'm going to let that kind of toughen up a bit. And back to the rectangular pot now. Flip it over. And I'm going to start carving out the inside more. It's way, way too thick. The feet on this pot won't be really tall, so I can take a lot more material out of the bottom of the pot here, thinning it down. I'm very, very thick at the moment. And I'm truing up my sides, trying to keep it rectangular. Okay, I think that's enough work on that one for now. We'll let that kind of firm up a bit more. I'll go back to this pot. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I'm just shaping the contours a bit more on this pot. I need to give it more of a flared lip, I think. Probably should have done this before I carved any grooves in it, but it's okay to do it now. Yeah, so this one's kind of roughed out and it's looking nice. So I'll flip that over and go back to the rectangular pot now. So I think the next step on the rectangular pot is getting the feet looking better. So if we look at the feet on this one, you can see they're chamfered on the inside, flat on the outside, but there's a definite chamfer on them, and I like that. It looks very precise. So I'll try and get that sort of a foot on the bottom of the pot. I was working on the feet, and I filled the card in the camera. So I kind of roughed them in place. They're not looking very good. So I've got to make them look really nice. That's what I have to do. My lotus flower shaped pot is nearing completion, so here is a look at it. So I have a little work to go on it, but it's getting very close. And I remembered to sign the bottom. There's the bottom signed. Name and date. Yeah, so I have a little bit of finishing work to do on it, but it's basically done. So I will complete my other pot for today now, my rectangular shaped one. I'm going to put 2 drainage holes in this pot. So I'll put one right, where will I put it? Right here. And the other right here. And again, that'll give me an idea of how thick the bottom of the pot is and how far down I can take it. I'll make the feet a little taller, but not too much taller. I think it's nice to have sort of subtle feet on the bottom. I'm getting close to the thickness and depth of my walls on the rectangular pot. So I'm going to flip it over now and get the feet made. I think that's pretty good. Okay, now I'll carve out the inner part, leaving an L-shaped foot. So I'll come in and start removing material, making that nice chamfer on them. So there's the feet roughed in. They're looking quite nice. The whole pot's looking quite nice. It's a simple little pot. So now I've got the big task of fixing it all up to make it nice and smooth and flat. Yeah, I think I just have a little cleanup work on this pot, and then I think it's done. How exciting. Pot number 5 is finished now. Let's go in and have a look at it. So there it is. A simple rectangular pot. Yeah, I think it's looking quite nice. Here's a look at the 5 pots now, all side by side. Yeah, a good variety, that's for sure. Julian and I were bombing around in the little Fiat Abarth today. It sure is a fun car. Wow. Pulls like a freight train. I think I'm getting faster at making pots because I made 2 pots today. That's progress, I guess. I'm happy with the way they turned out. So that's all for this video. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.